here. Today I'm talking about a matchup between two of the most filthy masterminds in all of anime, Orochimaru and Kenjaku. Before I get into their respective abilities, I'll just start by saying I'm only using Orochimaru from part 1 and 2. I'll be leaving Boruto era out for this video, but I will talk about Boruto era Orochimaru towards the end of the video. Moving on to their abilities, I'll start with Kenjaku since I feel like most people have a gist of what Orochimaru is already capable of. Kenjaku is over 1,000 years old, and his experience with Jujutsu definitely shows. Kenjaku being the one who created the Culling Games, planned the Shibuya incident, created the death paintings like Choso and Yuji, had knowledge on how to transform Sukuna into a cursed object, and is only second to Tengen in barrier techniques in Jujutsu Kaisen. Kenjaku's innate curse technique is the ability to switch bodies. He does so by replacing their brain with him, and by doing so gains all of that person's memories as well as their abilities, like how he took over Naruto Shikamo, or Yuji's mom Kaori, and Geto. This technique even works if the person is dead, unlike Orochimaru's version, which I'll go over a little later when I get to him. Offensively though, Kenjaku is still top 5 in the verse, being able to wipe the floor with Yuki, a special grade sorcerer, and Choso. For reference, in JJK, a special grade sorcerer is at least capable of taking down a nation, that being the standard for what qualifies somebody to be a special grade in the first place. Kenjaku's second curse technique is Geto's curse manipulation. If you're unaware, curse manipulation allows the user of the technique to absorb curses and then use them as they see fit. Kenjaku has multiple curse spirits at his disposal, giving him access to even more techniques on top of his own. For example, a smallpox deity that he used in his fight with Mei Mei is very capable of cornering a grade 1 sorcerer. Another use for curse manipulation is that Kenjaku can absorb a curse spirit and use that curse spirit's technique in his own body, like with Mahito using idol transfiguration to start the Culling Games. This portion of the technique is known as maximum Uzumaki. To my knowledge, after the use of whatever curse spirit's curse technique he uses, he loses the ability, making it a one and done, but that's only because we ever only see him do this to start the Culling Games. It's never confirmed, so I'll just go with the idea that for now it's a one and done. And while this is a drawback, it's still a very useful skill he has in his arsenal. The other use of maximum Uzumaki allows Kenjaku to combine a massive amount of cursed spirits into a pure blast of cursed energy. We first see Geto use this in JJK Volume 0 against Yuta, and then again Kenjaku uses it in his fight with Yuki and Choso. Whether on a large or small scale, this ability is very powerful and shouldn't be taken lightly. His third curse technique that he obtained from possessing Kaori, Itadori's mom, is anti-gravity, allowing him to essentially negate gravity. Kenjaku used this technique in his fight with Yuki and Choso, being able to counteract Yuki's black hole, that black hole being stated to be able to destroy the planet had Kenjaku not stopped it when he did. Outside of his curse techniques, Kenjaku is also well versed with reverse curse technique, being able to regenerate his wounds with little effort, like when Yuki had his arm hanging off in their fight and he just healed it in no time. He can also use curse technique reversal to make his anti-gravity regular gravity, and it also enhances the power of the technique on top of it. This is the way we mainly see him use it for the majority of his fight with Yuki and Choso, being able to just outright stop all of Choso's blood manipulation techniques, as well as attacks from Yuki and Yuki's Shinigami Garuda. This technique is also enough to slam Yuki and Choso down and completely incapacitate Choso. This is a side note, but I feel really bad for Choso, man. Like he got washed the whole fight. It was almost hard to read. Like I was waiting, hoping for Yuki to just step in. Aside from that, Kenjaku also has his domain expansion, Womb Profusion. Now, Womb Profusion is basically just a giant pillar made up of cursed spirits. And while we don't necessarily know the nature of his domain expansion, sure hit technique is very much so powerful to the point where it gravely damaged Yuki. Like I said earlier, a special grade sorcerer. Kenjaku is also one of the only people in the series to have a barrierless barrier technique like Sukuna that still keeps the sure hit. While fighting hand to hand may not be what Kenjaku particularly specializes in, he is by no means a slouch. I mean, he smacked up Choso literally their entire fight. Also being able to take on Yuki and Choso at the same time while waiting on his curse technique to regenerate. The same Choso is giving Yuji a hard time during their fight, and Kenjaku is just wailing on him the entire time. Speaking on just his raw cursed energy, Kenjaku has pretty immense levels of it. It is shown by him and his proficiency to use curse manipulation as he does, since it requires a heavy amount of curse energy to use curse manipulation anyway. This is even backed by how he can take low level curse spirits and make them even trouble for Choso, who should be comparable to a grade 1 sorcerer. Kenjaku is definitely one of the most experienced and versatile fighters in this verse, and definitely should not be taken lightly. Orochimaru is a combat genius, praised for being one of the most gifted minds in his generation. He's one of the 3 legendary Sannin and this exceptional shinobi, getting compliments from the likes of even Hashirama being hailed as the god of shinobi. Orochimaru is stated to be capable of taking out a nation in part 1, and this is further backed by him at one point being a member of the Akatsuki, and all of the members of the Akatsuki in the group, excluding Hidan, being able to take down a nation on their own. He's also easily Kage level, being a candidate himself at one point, even though he never got the position. In his lifetime, he still killed 2 Kage, Rasa and the other one being Hiruzen. Orochi in part 1 should be equal or higher to old man Hiruzen, who is still the strongest Kage even as an old man. I'm more inclined to believe though Orochimaru is above Hiruzen, mainly due to the fact that he was holding back their entire fight. A lot of people tend to believe Hiruzen was holding back, and well, while that may be true, I think Orochimaru was holding back even more. This can be shown throughout his entire fight with Hiruzen, as he had stabbed himself in the hand before even starting the fight to shake his nerves on the notion of actually killing his former teacher. If you notice, for the majority of their fight, he isn't even fighting Hiruzen himself. He's using his Edo Tensei, Hashirama, and Tobirama, further alluding to the fact that he really didn't want to kill his teacher. As far as chakra goes, Orochimaru has a very vast pool of it, and is stated by Karin to be very foul. He also has access to all 5 chakra natures, as well as yin and yang release, giving him access to a myriad of jutsu that he can use in combat. His chakra control is one of the best in the series, being able to pull off some of the most complex jutsu. Just a little side note before I move on to what Orochimaru can do hand to hand. He also can absorb chakra on contact. Just a little tidbit that I don't hear people talk about that much. Orochimaru is no stranger to hand-to-hand combat, swapping hands with Hiruzen, who in the 4th data book was stated to be a taijutsu master. I didn't really get into speed when I was talking about Kenjaku, so I'll get Orochimaru out of the way first. If you've watched or read Naruto, you know Kakashi cut lightning as a kid. Lightning is 1/3 the speed of light. Adult Kakashi being faster, stronger, and more experienced, Kakashi still felt that if he tried to attack Orochimaru, he would just straight up die. The lightning blade being an even better version of Chidori that he previously used to cut the lightning as a kid. This would easily put him massively above lightning, with the 3rd data book giving him a 4.5 out of 5 in speed. Same as Heavy Sasuke, who is said to have godlike speed, which if you take that data book statement is still enough to put him above Kenjaku. I just think that if Sasuke only beat no arm Orochimaru because he was sick, it leads me to believe that Orochimaru at full power will be massively above this Sasuke, and this is even backed by the implications that Sasuke only surpassed Orochimaru at the Kage Summit with his Mangekyo Sharingan. I want to talk about the Mach 3 conundrum in JJK because it's very consistent and inconsistent, and just downright doesn't make sense. Hikari is able to react to Kashima's lightning attacks, albeit he does get tagged by it, but he's still able to perceive the attack like it's not placing him. And another instance is where Toji reacts to Nue's lightning attack. In the anime, we see the slow-mo of Toji looking at the lightning and still being able to get out of the way with little issue. Kenjaku is obviously above Toji. In almost every regard, you can still say that Toji may still be physically stronger and faster, but it's not by like a blitz tier above or anything crazy like that. Orochimaru is definitely faster than Kenjaku, and if you don't think so, leave why down below in the comments, but I guarantee you won't be able to prove that he's faster. Just like Kenjaku, Orochimaru has crazy regen. In his fight with the four-tailed Naruto, he's cut in half and just uses his snakes to bring his body back together. He can even take this one step further and regurgitate a fully healed body out of his mouth. Along with crazy regen, Orochimaru is also capable of stretching his limbs to freakishly long lengths to close the distance in battle, should he need to get to his opponent. Due to all the experiments Orochimaru has done to himself over the years, his true form is that of a giant white snake made up of smaller white snakes. The blood from Orochimaru in this form is very toxic and evaporates into the air and can paralyze anybody who inhales it. Now, just for reference, this paralytic toxin was enough to paralyze Sasuke, someone who is said to be immune to most, if not all, poisons already. The only time we see this form used, though, is in his fight with Sasuke right before he started the soul transfer jutsu, so I don't think he would rely on this in a regular fight unless he plans on stealing Kenjaku's body, but it's still something he has in his disposal. When it comes to Orochimaru's ninjutsu, he's unmatched when it comes to the sheer knowledge and depth he has due to all his research over the years. While Orochimaru does have all 5 chakra natures, we mainly see him use wind release with his great breakthrough jutsu and the Gale Palm. He has the hiding in the surface technique, allowing him to phase through solid objects should he need to avoid attacks or anything like that. Orochimaru also has the formation of 10,000 snakes that he used to flood the entire battlefield in his fight with four-tailed Naruto. Outside of making it hard to reach Orochimaru already from this technique, he can also use this formation of snakes to shield him from attacks. It would be incredibly difficult to even get close to him. With his hidden shadow snake technique, he brings snakes out of his sleeve to grapple opponents or just, smack them around. With Orochimaru's triple Rashomon summoning, he's able to summon 3 giant gates that were able to shield him from the Tail Beast Bomb four-tailed Naruto launched at him. Like I mentioned earlier, Orochimaru has the living corpse reincarnation jutsu that he uses to hop from body to body. First time we see Orochimaru, he's already inhabiting another female's body in the beginning of part 1. While most of the bodies that Orochimaru possesses start to reject him after a while, this technique can only last up to 3 years, making it so he constantly, or at least for the majority of the series, constantly had to switch from body to body every couple years or so. The strongest jutsu Orochimaru has in his arsenal by far is the 8-headed serpent jutsu. The name implies he transforms into the giant snake with 8 heads. This snake is also larger than Manda, which is one of the largest summons. Before getting sealed by Itachi with the Tosuke blade, Orochimaru was confident that the regular swings and attacks from the Susanoo wouldn't even be enough to kill him. He looked at Itachi's Susanoo and he was like, nah, it's not enough, and was probably finna run his fade if he didn't have the Tosuke blade. Moving away from his jutsu, he also has the legendary blade Kusanagi that he usually brings out of his mouth. This sword can extend and retract, as well as be controlled by Orochimaru telekinetically. And when I say extend, I mean this sword goes crazy lengths. In his fight with four-tailed Naruto, Orochimaru just extends the sword, lifts Naruto up, and blows him through the whole forest. This sword can also cut through virtually anything, and it was able to even damage Enma, one of the strongest summons we see in the series. Lastly, I want to talk about Orochimaru's snake summons themselves, and while he has multiple snake summons, his strongest one is definitely Manda. Manda on his own was strong enough to combat Gamabunta and Kotsuyu at the same time, and being durable enough for his body to still be intact after an attack like C0 from Deidara. So should Orochimaru need to shield himself like Sasuke did, he would definitely be able to do so. Now that that's out of the way, let's talk about how this fight will actually go down. I guess to get part 1 of Orochimaru out of the way, Kenjaku dies. I'm not saying that this fight is as one-sided as Boruto era Orochimaru, but what I'm saying is that Orochimaru is definitely a tier above Kenjaku when it comes to speed and regen in particular. Not to mention, when I was going over his jutsu, I didn't even mention Edo Tensei. In part 1, he's able to summon Hashirama and Tobirama, and while they're still vastly weaker than they are when he brings them back in part 2, they're still strong enough to press Hiruzen. So not only would Kenjaku have to deal with Orochimaru, now he's having to deal with them on top of it. I think the fight would start out similar how it did in his fight with Yuki, with Kenjaku just trying to get, a feel for his abilities. If he takes the same approach he did with Choso, it'll be a close quarters fight first, and while I think that Kenjaku could at least defend himself, he will quickly have to switch tactics because of how much faster Orochimaru would be. This is where his gravity techniques would come in hand when he inevitably gets overwhelmed. He probably started to bring out his cursed spirits, like the smallpox deity and Ganesha. And while I do think that Orochimaru would take damage from the smallpox deity's domain expansion, any damage that is received just goes away once Orochimaru sheds his old body for a brand new one. This is just something he does in character, so it's likely he'll just whip this out and, should he take substantial damage in the fight. Ganesha is a cursed spirit that can target concepts and remove obstacles, but we don't ever get to see him do that in combat because Yuki just one-shots it, and I'm sure that if Orochimaru with no arms and a sick body can tag Foretell Naruto before the latter can react, he'll just end up blitzing and taking it out, much like Yuki did. And if he has Hashirama and Tobirama out, I don't think the cursed spirit will reach him anyways, or get the chance to use this ability. If Kenjaku is able to fire off a small maximum Uzumaki like he did against Choso and Yuki, it really doesn't matter because Orochimaru will just regenerate or bring his body back together with snakes like he did with Naruto. If he charges a full Uzumaki, Orochimaru could just block it with the Rashomon Gates the same way he did with Naruto's Tail Beast Bomb. When all of this fails, Kenjaku will probably just, pop a domain expansion. And like I said, this technique is strong enough to damage Yuki severely. So there's no doubt in my mind that Orochimaru would also take damage from this. However, this won't be enough to keep him down due to his regen and his, body's weird anatomy. I've been trying to sit here and think of a scenario where Kenjaku would win, and I just can't. It's really bad for him, especially when you put Hashirama and Tobirama on the battlefield. So I'll be going to the next Orochimaru. The next Orochimaru I'll be going over is No Arm Orochimaru, the one that fights Tsunade and Jiraiya in the three-way deadlock back in part 1. Now, this Orochimaru is tremendously weaker than in his fight with Hiruzen, seeing as though he can't use his arms and he doesn't have access to his ninjutsu, which is a huge part of his arsenal. I don't think that anybody would have a problem when I say that Kenjaku would beat this Orochimaru. Not to say that it would be a sweep or anything like that, because Orochimaru still has access to Manda and can still defend himself with his Kusanage sword and, extend his limbs and stretch his neck, much like he did in part 1 with Jiraiya and Tsunade. And while I don't know exactly how many maximum Uzumakis it would take to bring down Manda, he would eventually go down and Orochimaru will be next up. This fight becomes more interesting once you start to talk about the next Orochimaru we see in the series, which is the Orochimaru that has his arms but his jutsu is still sealed away. The one that fights Foretell Naruto, as I've been talking about. This Orochimaru is like months away from dying, and he has a sick body, and he's just out there toying with Naruto. I don't know if y'all watched or read that fight in a while, but like Orochimaru is unimpressed by Naruto for the majority of their fight. Like, in this body, he also has access to his summons, excluding Manda this time because Orochimaru himself would never summon Manda while he's in that weakened state. This means that should Kenjaku fire off like, a large scale maximum Uzumaki, he'll still be able to defend himself with the Rashomon Gates. Similar to his fight with Naruto, I believe he'll just flood the battlefield and just start boxing Kenjaku, sliding around, doing all this crazy snake stuff. I didn't bring this up before, but those snakes that he floods the battlefield with also has swords coming from their mouths as well. I'll say for this round in particular, you could argue it'll go either way, but I'm giving this one to Kenjaku. Mainly to Orochimaru not having the same stamina and his jutsu being sealed off. Last one of Orochimaru I want to talk about is going to be the Orochimaru that's brought back during the 4th Great Shinobi World War. I'll just go ahead and say, yeah, Orochimaru just smacks up Kenjaku. Like he literally has a better body than his original one, higher regen due to the amount of Hashirama cells, and because of his Zetsu body, he now has access to Hashirama's whip release. There's just no way Kenjaku is walking out of this fight alive. The best he's got is no arm. Orochimaru, I swear I'm not trying to glaze Orochimaru. This fight is really just like bad for Kenny. I was really over here pressed trying to find a way that Kenjaku could keep Orochimaru down and just couldn't. So I think that's all I have to say for this matchup. If you've liked this video, be sure to follow for more content like this. Later.